Listen to me. Honor ain't just a word, it's a standard. It's not something you casually throw around to sound deep. Honor is something you live, something you carry, something that weighs heavy on your soul because it's connected to your name, your purpose, and your legacy. See, some people out here chasing clout, fame, money, but they forgot the root. They forgot that real success, the kind that makes your chest rise when you walk into a room, is built on honor. You don't need a title to have. You don't need 1 million followers to walk with it. You don't need applause to act with it. Honor is when you keep going after they stop clapping. Honor is when you show up even when no one's watching. Honor is when you give your all because your name is on it. Honor is a lifestyle, not a label. Too many people think honor is something you earn once and then carry like a trophy, like it's an achievement you post about or a badge you wear when it's convenient. But honor isn't something you turn on and off depending on who's watching or what day it is. Honor is a 24/7 commitment. It shows up in the small details that nobody sees, in the decisions you make when no one's holding you accountable, in the way you carry yourself even when you're under pressure. It's not about being recognized. It's about being consistent. You don't get to pick and choose when to be honorable. It's not reserved for awards, graduations, or public moments. It shows up in your everyday life, in the way you treat the janitor, the same way you treat the CEO, and how you stay true to your values, even when it's uncomfortable, in how you choose discipline over distraction, even when no one will blame you for slacking. Honor isn't about titles or applause. Some people think that once they get a certain position or once they're seen as successful, they'll suddenly become honorable. But honor doesn't come with a title. In fact, if you wait until you get the position before you start living with honor, you'll never keep it. You've got to have honor before the recognition. You've got to be that person who shows up early, even when nobody's asking, who puts in extra effort, even when there's no promise of reward, who lives by a code, even when that code doesn't seem to benefit you immediately. Because that's when honor is real, when it's inconvenient, when it's hard, when it costs you something. There's a level of self-respect that comes with honor. It's how you build trust with yourself. When you say you're going to do something and you do it, that's honor. When you set a standard for yourself and hold to it, even when you're tired, even when others are taking shortcuts, that's honor. It's a quiet kind of power. You don't have to boast or prove of anything because the way you move already tells the story. Honor doesn't have to speak loudly. It shows up in your character, your work ethic, your discipline. It's woven into everything you do. People may not always recognize it right away, but over time, your consistency builds a reputation that no trend, no scandal, and no rumor can touch. No, living with honor means you don't change based on the room you're in. You don't adjust your values to fit in or compromise your integrity to get ahead. You stay rooted. You walk into every situation knowing who you are, what you stand for, and what you refuse to sacrifice. Honor keeps you grounded. It doesn't let you drift into manipulation, shortcuts, or playing games to win. It reminds you that even if the process is longer, even if it's lonelier, the reward will be real and lasting. It's about doing the right thing, not the easy thing. It's about choosing truth, even when a lie will protect your image. It's about being the same person behind closed doors that you are when the spotlight is on. Honor is also about how you treat people, not just the people who can help you or elevate you, but especially the ones who can't do anything for you. Honor shows up in how you talk to people, how you listen, how you respond when someone disagrees with you. It's easy to show respect when you feel respected, but real honor shows when you treat people with dignity regardless of how they treat you. That's strength, that's character. That's what separates people who live for appearances from those who live for purpose. And when you really adopt honor as your lifestyle, you start thinking differently. You start making decisions based on legacy, not impulse. You start showing up with discipline, with intention, with pride in your actions, because you know everything you do reflects back on your name. You don't need to talk about honor when you live with it. It speaks through your habits, your relationships, your resilience, and your refusal to settle for anything less than your best. Honor fuels consistency without external validation. When you are driven by honor, you don't rely on likes, comments, applause, or any kind of outside attention to keep showing up. You don't need someone clapping for you to give your best. You don't need recognition to keep grinding. You don't need someone to cheer you on to make progress. Why? Because your reason for working, your reason for showing up isn't based on how people feel about you. It's based on what you believe about yourself and the principles you stand on. That's what makes honor powerful. It gives you an inner drive that doesn't die when the crowd disappears, when the camera shut off, or when you're no longer trending. It sustains you when the motivation fades, when the excitement wears off, when the journey gets long, slow, and hard. Consistency is the fruit of honor. People who live with honor don't chase hype. They build habits. They don't wait until the mood strikes. They act from their values. Because when you live from a place of honor, you stop depending on circumstances to determine your performance. You stop waking up and asking, do I feel like it today? And instead you wake up with a mission to be who you said you'd be, to do what you said you do. And that mission doesn't change because the applause stopped. That mission doesn't waver because people don't notice. That mission stays solid because you are solid. Your foundation isn't built on fans. It's built on purpose. Most people give their best when people are watching. They put on a show. They work harder when the boss is in the room. They push themselves when they think a reward is around the corner. But people who live with honor don't need an audience. They don't need a stage. Their stage is life. Their audience is their conscience. Their reward is knowing they gave everything when they had every reason to quit. That's what separates them. That's what separates them. That's what builds consistency that lasts. When you show up every single day, not because someone's praising you, but because you refuse to dishonor the calling on your life, that's when you start becoming unstoppable. Honor keeps you from cutting corners. It keeps you doing the full workout when no one is there to count your reps. It keeps you honest in your business, even if it costs you profit. It keeps you accountable to your goals, even when nobody's checking in on you, because you don't do it for them. You do it for the standard you set within yourself, You're not driven by validation. You're driven by vision. You've seen what's possible, and you've made a decision that nothing and no one is going to stop you from getting there. Not fatigue, not criticism, not loneliness, not doubt. You're consistent not because you feel consistent, but because honor demands it. When you live with honor, you stop being addicted to the opinions of others. You don't get tossed around emotionally every time someone forgets to acknowledge you or doesn't support you the way you expected. You don't break down just because you're being overlooked. Because you know who you are, you know what you're worth, and you know what you're working toward. And that knowledge, that internal clarity, gives you power. It gives you stamina. It gives you consistency that doesn't rise and fall with people's perception of you. Honor also keeps you focused. It strips away the need to impress and replaces it with the desire to improve. You stop comparing your path to someone else's because your focus is not on being seen. It's on being better. You don't fake excellence just to look the part. You live with excellence because it's who you are. It's baked into your identity. And when you build your consistency on that kind of honor, your work begins to speak for itself. You become the kind of person that others look at and say, they don't quit, they don't slack, they don't disappear when it gets hard. They show up day after day with the same fire, the same focus, the same hunger, honor, reject shortcuts and excuses. It stands in direct opposition to the mindset that looks for the quickest way out, the easiest path to results, the least resistance to growth. When you truly live with honor, you develop an intolerance for anything that feels like cheating the process. You don't try to manipulate outcomes, skip steps, or dodge responsibility just to look successful. You understand that real success isn't just about getting there. It's about how you got there. The process matters. The path matters. And the way you carry yourself through the struggle matters even more than the destination. We live in a world where everyone wants the rewards without the discipline, the shine without the sacrifice, the credit without the commitment. But when you operate with honor, you're not in it for surface level wins. You're not here to fake greatness for the gram or cut corners just to check off boxes. You're here for legacy. You're here for something deeper than a viral moment or a temporary high. And that means you don't tolerate shortcuts, even when no one would blame you for taking them. Honor keeps you on the hard path because that's where growth lives. That's where strength is built. That's where your identity is forged. Excuses lose their power when honor is your guide. You don't let circumstances become a reason to give up. You don't blame your background, your lack of resources, or your environment for your choices. You face the reality, but you rise above it. You take full responsibility for your actions, your decisions, and your outcomes. Because that's what honor does. It refuses to play the victim. It doesn't look for a scapegoat. It says, this is my life, and I will own every part of it. Whether it's your fault or not, you take responsibility. Whether it's fair or not, you show up and do what needs to be done. That's the difference between people who rise and people who stay stuck. Honor makes you own your future by refusing to hide behind your past. Shortcuts don't build strength. They build dependence. Every time you take the easy way, you rob yourself of the lesson, the resilience, and the muscle that comes from doing it the right way. Honor tells you that even if the process is slower, even if it's more painful, it's still worth it because you're building something real. You're not constructing a castle on sand. You're laying brick after brick on a solid foundation. And when the storm comes, and it always does, the ones who built with shortcuts will watch everything collapse. But the ones who build with honor, they'll still be standing. They'll still be climbing. They'll still be growing. Honor doesn't entertain the voice that says that no one will know or everyone else is doing it or just this once. It recognizes that every compromise adds up. Every small decision that goes against your values slowly chips away at who you are. That's why people with honor are meticulous about the details. They do the right thing not just in big, dramatic moments, but in the small daily choices that no one sees. They understand that who you are when no one's watching is the truest version of you. And if that version is disciplined, consistent, and committed to doing things right, then your future is built on something unshakable. Excuses are the language of limitation, but honor is the language of ownership. It doesn't care what the odds are. It asks what you're willing to do. It doesn't dwell on what's missing. It pushes you to maximize what you have. It doesn't ask for sympathy. It demands accountability. And when you live that way, you don't just elevate your results, you elevate your entire life. You stop making decisions based on convenience and start making them based on character. You stop following the crowd and start leading by example. You stop looking for a way out and start digging deeper for a way through. Because with honor, quitting isn't an option, laziness isn't an excuse, and mediocrity has no place in your story. Honor means taking ownership. It means stepping into every part of your life with full responsibility, refusing to shift the blame, and refusing to wait for someone else to fix what you can change. Ownership is not just about admitting when you're wrong. It's about claiming your role in every outcome, every win, every failure, and every opportunity. It's easy to celebrate the victories and point to yourself when things go right, but real honor shows when you're willing to look at the parts of your life that are broken and say, I found me, not in a way that brings shame, but in a way that brings power. Because when you take ownership, you take control. You stop waiting for permission to be great, and you start moving like your future depends on what you do right now. People who live with honor don't deflect responsibility. They don't spend energy making excuses or looking for someone else to carry their weight. They understand that greatness starts with accountability. They don't say, they didn't help me, or nobody taught me, or the system is unfair. Whether that's true or not, they don't let that become a reason to stay small. They dig deeper, push harder, and rise higher because they know that blaming others might feel comfortable in the short term, but it keeps you powerless in the long run. Honor teaches you that your life is your responsibility, not your parents, not your bosses, not your partners, not your past, yours. Taking ownership means your word has weight. If you say you're going to do something, you follow through. If you set a goal, you pursue it with everything you got. You don't disappear when it gets tough. You don't run from commitment. You don't ghost your responsibilities and act like they'll magically go away. You step up. You keep your promises even when it's inconvenient. And when you fall short, you don't hide. You own it. You learn and you come back stronger. That's honor. That's the kind of character that doesn't get shaken by setbacks or failures because it's built on truth. It's not about being perfect. It's about being real enough to admit your flaws and strong enough to do something about them. Ownership also shows up in how you prepare. When you live with honor, you don't wait until the last minute to do what matters. You don't blame your lack of results on lack of time. You manage your time. You don't blame your poor decisions on emotion. You train your discipline. You plan, you study, you train, you reflect. You become the kind of person who's not just reacting to life, but proactively building it. You study your patterns, you observe your habits, you hold yourself accountable to a higher standard. You treat your time like it matters. You treat your purpose like it matters. You treat your influence like it matters. That's the mindset that comes from honor, the mindset that says, this life is mine to shape, and I'm not waiting for someone else to do it for me. Ownership also impacts how you handle relationships. When something goes wrong, you don't just point fingers. You ask yourself what you could have done differently. You seek understanding, not just defense. You apologize when you've hurt someone. You admit when your words were off, when your tone was wrong, when your actions didn't match your intention. That kind of humility takes strength, not weakness. And it builds trust, not just with others, but within yourself. Because every time you take ownership, you become more honest, more aware, and more capable of growing. Living with honor doesn't mean you have all the answers. It doesn't mean you never mess up. It means when you do, you own it, you address it, and you fix it. You don't run. You don't deny. You don't delay. You confront. You correct. You carry the weight of your choices like a leader, not like a victim. That's how progress is made. That's how real transformation happens. You move like someone who understands that your actions today are writing the story you'll tell tomorrow. You don't wait for motivation to appear. You take responsibility for creating it. You don't wait for conditions to be perfect. You take ownership of what's in your control and give it everything you've got. Honor elevates everything you represent. It's not just about your personal image or what people say about you. It's about the deeper meaning behind your actions, the message you send without speaking, and the legacy you're building every single day. When you live with honor, you become more than just a person chasing goals. You become a representative of something greater than yourself. You carry your family's name, your community's values, your personal story, and the sacrifices of those who came before you. You walk with weight, not the kind that slows you down, but the kind that keeps you grounded, focused, and responsible. People may not always see it, but everything you do reflects back on the people and the principles that shaped you. When you step into a room with honor, you bring respect with you. Wannabe? You demand it not by asking, but by how you carry yourself. You speak with intention. You work with discipline. You treat others with value. And even when you're underestimated, dishonored, or overlooked, you maintain your composure because you understand that honor isn't about how others treat you. It's about how you respond. It's a decision to rise above drama, to choose class over chaos, to lead with strength, and to respond with purpose. People might not understand you. They might not get your level of discipline or your refusal to take the easy route, but they'll remember the way you moved. They'll remember how you stood tall when it was easier to fold. Everything changes when you realize you're representing something bigger than just your own desires. Your work ethic starts to mean more. Your words carry more power. Your decisions have ripple effects. You start thinking about the impact of your actions, not just today, but years from now. You start moving like a builder, someone who's constructing a foundation others will one day stand on. And that mindset shifts everything. You no longer chase validation because you understand your value. You no longer waste time trying to impress people who don't understand your vision because you know who you're really accountable to. Honor also shows up in how you treat your opportunity. You don't take them for granted. You don't waste time. You don't let laziness or procrastination rob you of your potential. You approach every assignment, every goal, every relationship with seriousness. You understand that people have paved the way for you to be where you are, and you refuse to disrespect their sacrifices by giving anything less than your best. Even when things get hard, even when the pressure is real, you keep pushing because you know you're not just working for a paycheck or recognition. You're building a reputation. You're building a name that means something. You're building a life that speaks long after you're gone. Oh, when you operate with honor, people start to notice that you're different. Not because you're flashy or loud, but because you're consistent and dependable. You're someone others can count on. You're someone whose word means something. You're someone who doesn't fold when the pressure hits. You become a person of integrity. And in a world that's constantly shifting, that kind of consistency becomes rare and valuable. People may not always compliment it, but they feel it. They trust it. And over time, that trust turns into respect. And that respect turns into influence. You begin to understand that even in the smallest of moments, you're setting an example. Whether it's your younger sibling, your child, your teen, or someone watching from a distance, your actions are writing a blueprint. The way you carry yourself is permission for others to do the same. When you move with honor, you give others a reason to believe they can do it too. You raise the standard, not just for yourself, but for everyone around you. You influence without trying to. You inspire by being disciplined. You teach by doing. You lead not by command, but by example. And that's when honor becomes more than a personal code. It becomes a force that elevates everyone connected to you. Honor is the highest form of motivation. When you live with honor, you're not driven by hype or external energy. You don't need someone to shout at you, to push you, to keep you moving. Hope for you. Your engine is internal. Your fire comes from within. It's not temporary. It's not based on mood. It's not something you wake up with some days and lose on others. It's constant because it's tied to something deeper than emotion. It's tied to who you are, who you're becoming, and what you stand for, you stand for. You don't get tired of doing the right thing because the right thing is your identity. That's what makes honor different from motivation based on trends, feelings, or competition. It doesn't fade. It doesn't waver. It holds steady when everything else changes. Most people are chasing motivation like it's a feeling they have to catch. Think if they can just watch the right video, read the right quote, or find the right mentor, they'll be ready to move. But people who live with honor don't wait to feel ready, don't wait to be inspired. They act out of principle. They move with purpose. They make decisions based on their standards, not their emotions. Even when they're tired, even when they're hurting, even when no one is clapping for them. That's the kind of power that separates winners from quitters. It's not about how much energy you have. It's about how much character you have. Honor keeps you focused on the long game. It keeps you grounded in discipline when distractions come. It makes you say no to what looks good in the moment so you can say yes to what matters in the long run. It forces you to think before you act, to stay aligned with your values, to protect your reputation, and to move in a way that makes your future self proud. That kind of motivation can't be manufactured. It has to be lived. It has to be built day by day through consistent choices that align with your highest self. It has to be fought for, especially when the temptation to take shortcuts creeps in. Honor doesn't let you choose easy over excellent. It pushes you to give your best even when your best doesn't feel like enough. When honor is your motivation, you don't care about being first. You care about being faithful. You don't rush the process. You respect it. You know that real success takes time and that anything gained without honor isn't truly a win. You refuse to compromise your values for a shortcut, a check, or a quick applause. You know that the road may be longer, the climb may be steeper, and the reward may take more time, but you trust it's worth it because your integrity stayed intact. Honor makes you play the game differently. It makes you say, I'd rather lose with integrity than win by cheating. And that mindset is rare, but it's also powerful beyond measure. Honor also gives you energy that's not rooted in ego. You're not moving because you want to prove someone wrong or flex on your doubter. You're moving because you made a commitment to yourself that you refuse to break. You show up because you said you would. You grind because you know your name is on the line. You sacrifice because the goal is bigger than comfort. You keep going because you believe in what you're building. That belief isn't based on feelings. It's based on faith. It's based on faith. It's based on discipline. It's based on character. You don't have to hype yourself up when you're walking in honor because honor gives you peace, focus, and clarity. You don't need the room to applaud you when you know deep down you're doing what's right. You don't need people to see your work when you know the work is building something eternal. You don't move for the crowd. You move for the mission. You don't need to be motivated when you're already aligned with purpose. Honor makes you show up without being asked, push harder without being told, and keep climbing even when nobody else understands why you're still going. So now it's on you, Huh. No more waiting for perfect conditions. No more blaming the world for what you won't take responsibility for. No more shrinking your standard to match the crowd. You were built for more. You were called to stand out. You were born to lead, not just with words, but with the way you live, breathe, grind, and show up every single day. Let your honor speak before you ever open your mouth. Let your consistency tell your story before the world ever hears your name. Let your discipline write the legacy that no storm can erase. You don't need motivation when you walk in honor. You don't need applause when you got alignment. You don't need shortcuts when you got standard. This is your time. This is your time. This is your moment. So rise up, lock in, walk with honor, and let the world feel the weight of your purpose.